For the exhortation today, we have been asked to read Exodus chapter 12, verse 11 and 12. Also Exodus 12, verses 24 through 40. And finally Exodus 13 and verse 3. Let's begin with Exodus 12, 11 and 12. Exodus 12, starting at verse 11, this is how you are to eat it, with your cloak tucked into your belt, your sandals on your feet, and your staff in your hand. Eat it in haste. It is the Lord's Passover. On the same night I will pass through Egypt and strike down every firstborn, both men and animals, and I will bring judgment on all the gods of Egypt. I am the Lord. And now let's flip over to Exodus 12 and 24 through 40. Obey these instructions as a lasting ordinance for you and your descendants. When you enter the land that the Lord will give you, as he promised, observe this ceremony. And when your children ask you, what does the ceremony mean to you, then tell them, it is the Passover sacrifice of the Lord, who passed over the house of the Israelites in Egypt and spared our homes when he struck down the Egyptians. Then the people bowed down and worshiped. The Israelites did just what the Lord commanded Moses and Aaron. At midnight, the Lord struck down all the firstborn in Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh, who sat on the throne, to the firstborn of the prisoner who was in the dungeon, and the firstborn of all the livestock as well. Pharaoh and all his officials and all the Egyptians got up during the night, and there was loud wailing in Egypt, for there was not a house without someone dead. During the night, Pharaoh summoned Moses and Aaron and said, "Up, leave my people, you and the Israelites. Go worship the Lord as you have requested. Take your flocks and herds, as you have said, and go, and also bless me." The Egyptians urged the people to hurry and leave the country, for otherwise, they said, we will all die. So the people took their dough before the yeast was added and carried it on their shoulders in kneading troughs, wrapped in clothing. The Israelites did as Moses instructed and asked the Egyptians for articles of silver and gold and for clothing. The Lord has made the Egyptians favorably disposed towards the people, and they gave them whatever they asked for, so they plundered the Egyptians. The Egyptians journeyed from Ramsey to Succoth. There were about 600,000 men on foot, besides women and children. Many other people went up with them, as well as large droves of livestock, both flocks and herds. With the dough they had brought from Egypt, they baked cakes of bread. The dough was without yeast, because they had been driven out of Egypt and did not have time to prepare the food for themselves. Now the length of time the Israelite people lived in Egypt was 430 years. And now Exodus chapter 13 and verse 3. Then Moses said to the people, "Commemorate this day, the day you came out of Egypt, of the land of slavery, because the Lord brought you out of it with a mighty hand. Eat nothing containing yeast." Our speaker today is our brother Gary Hoglund. The title of his talk is Hands. He wrote me a little note here. He says, the long version from Cease and Uni is, what do you have in your hands? Brother Gary.
Thank you, Brother Otto, and I didn't forget your request. Our story begins, good morning, it's a pleasure to be here, in Genesis 13:1. So Abram went up from Egypt to the Negev with his wife. Oops, doesn't begin there. That's where the play begins, sorry. That's the beginning of the play, so you'll know. We have a skit, we can call it. So at midnight, the Lord struck down all the firstborn in Egypt, that of Pharaoh, the prisoners, of the dungeon, and of the livestock. And they all got up during the night, and there was loud wailing in Egypt, and can imagine that if we lost our firstborn. King James Version says, there was a great cry in Egypt. Modern version, there was loud wailing in Egypt because there was not a home without someone dead. The Living Bible version is, there was bitter crying throughout all the land of Egypt. And then we read about the Passover. This is how you are to eat it, with your cloak tucked into your belt, your sandals on your feet, and your staff in your hand, which was one of the examples Sister Uni gave me. Eat it in haste. It is the Lord's Passover. And, the King James Version, verse 12, is, for I will pass through the land of Egypt this night, and will smite all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast, and against all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgment. I am the Lord. So I looked up the versions of this verse, all the versions, and it was all the, for all the gods of Egypt, it was all small letter, no capital, which is, that's what the living God thinks of false gods and idols. So God is also passing judgment on all of these false gods that they worshiped. And we remember how many of these false gods and idols got carried out of Egypt with the Israelites. They were coming because other people went with them. What kind of false gods do we have to deal with today in our lives? What do we carry with us? So we know where the subject came from. The people that are usually in the front row. And it is, what do we have in our hands? We know the Israelites were to have a staff in their hands, and everything was to be done in haste, in a hurry. In the modern version, referring to the staff, I found interesting in Exodus 12:11, is referring to something a little, maybe more modern version, and carrying your walking sticks in your hands when you're leaving. So you'll be seeing some walking sticks today during the production, which I'll tell you is non-rehearsed, so this is going to be real interesting. But you guys won't know it's non-rehearsed. Only because I told you. So what do we have in our hands? Well, right now, most of us might have a Bible in our hands, and some perhaps an electronic Bible device. That would be Brother Cease, I think. What I saw this past Thursday morning, I wanted to bring up. It was both humorous and sad. I think I was on my way to work. And it's an example of what's going on in our modern society today. And I'm not picking on any teenagers here today because most of them are in the back anyway. But this also applies to the adults, and I've done it myself. And this isn't a joke. This is a real story. It might come across as a joke, but so there were two teenagers crossing at the intersection in Fox Lake. They looked neither to the left or the right. They traveled through with nary a care in the world as to what the drivers were doing. They were very focused on what was in their hands, and it wasn't the Bible. Like this. They walk through the intersection. People are trying to turn. They got the cell phone, smartphone right in their face. Two in a row. One behind the other, like a couple of ducks. And it reminded me of one of those old zombie movies we might have seen. And you can imagine the expression on my face and the expression on, I looked at other drivers in the intersection. I saw an older fellow, probably my age, I don't know, he was trying to make the turn, right-hand turn, waiting for these. They were in no hurry. No hurry at all. So this guy's looking on in disbelief, shaking his head, as he sat there waiting for the zombies to cross the road. So that's the smartphone. And I don't know if any of you saw the video with the, years ago came out, with the lady walking through the mall and she walked right into the pond, right over the ledge, right into the pond with her cell phone. So that was another thing. We can't see farther than what's right in front of our face. I mean, we need to remove that. We need to keep our focus on the things of God, not on the things of the smartphone. And we may have heard, or it's coming out more and more, this is becoming a big problem, bigger and bigger. They call it distracted driving. It used to be drunken driving. I think this is taking way over that. Seems like people don't care. It's illegal to do it, but we see it every day. You see it going down the highway, you look over and somebody's doing 70 miles an hour and they're texting. It's illegal. Do we have our smartphone in our hand, or do we have the armor of God in our hand? Ephesians 6:13. And this reminded me of the children of Israel leaving Egypt. Ephesians 6:13. Therefore, put on the full armor of God, so that when the day of evil comes, you may be able to stand your ground. And after you have done everything, to stand. Stand firm then, with the belt of truth buckled around your waist. And how did they leave Egypt? Exodus 12. Eat it this way, with your waist belted. Back to Ephesians. With the breastplate of righteousness in place, and with your feet fitted with the readiness that comes from the gospel of peace. Compare to Exodus. Your feet sandaled. Fitted feet, sandaled feet. And we remember also that their sandals never wore out, or their clothes. How long of a life do we get out of a pair of shoes? A year, if we're real easy on them? The feet sandaled to be able to leave in haste. And compared to Ephesians, and your feet fitted with the readiness. Ephesians 6 also replaces the staff or the walking stick with what? Can we remember? Sword. Correct. It also adds a helmet. Take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the Word of God. So our sword would either be in our right hand or left hand. It depends on if you're right-handed or left-handed, I would imagine. Exodus 12, your staff in your hand. So sword in your hand, staff in. So you get to the New Testament and it becomes, the staff, in my mind, becomes a sword. So we have the Word of God in our hand. That's Ephesians 6, 17 and 18. And we are told to pray in the Spirit on all occasions with all kinds of prayers and requests. So with this in mind, be alert. And we're not too alert when walking or we're driving and we have the cell phone or smartphone in our hand while our hand is holding it in front of our face. This foolish selfie generation, I've only heard this reported, that people are dying, falling into the Grand Canyon to get that perfect selfie shot, and they're getting killed doing stupid things, trying to get that good picture. That perfect selfie picture. And what does the preacher say about that? Vanity, vanity. And all is vanity. And we're doing a little diversion here. And I know we have some people in the medical field out there. We'll see how good my information is compared to what you might remember or what we remember in schools. How many bones are there in your hand? Anybody remember? Oh, man. Very good. 27. Very good.
I don't adjust that one.
Very good. One off, that's not bad. More than half of the bones in your body are found in your hands and your feet. Sandals on your feet and staff in your hand, 27 bones in each hand, 26 bones in each foot. And I love the way they worded this, and the way that they are arranged, they say, is remarkably similar. Wow, how could that be? So if you can just bend your fingers, and you can see 3 bones. They each contain 3 bones, except your thumbs. They're just kind of interesting, goofy stuff. 2 bones. So I added up the number of bones in our hands and feet, and I got 106. So I'm wondering what was left with the rest of the body then. So the human skeleton is the internal framework of the body. We all know that. It's composed of, and they keep using the terms around, about, or around, so I don't know if there's different views on how many bones there are out there, I guess. But it's composed of around 270 bones at birth. This total decreases to around 260 bones at adulthood because some of these bones are fusing together. I hope my Googling is halfway accurate and looks good. So some bones get fused together, so these numbers give me around from my math, which isn't always right, 100 bones in your arms, chest, neck, and legs, and the other parts of your body. So 100 bones roughly in your body, and 106 bones in your hands and your feet. And I will again remark on what they said. They say that how they are arranged is the hands and feet is remarkably similar. This is the worldview of our hands, and what a remarkable coincidence. But we believe, as what Psalms tells us in Psalms 139, we're told, you have laid your hand upon me. And at verse 6, such knowledge is too wonderful for me, too lofty for me to attain. If I settle on the far side of the sea, even there your hand will guide me. Your right hand will hold me fast. This is our view now of why the hands and feet are so similar. 139, Psalms, verse 13. For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because... Anybody remember the next part? Very good. I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place. Your eyes saw my unformed body. So the worldview of our hands is, wow, that's an amazing coincidence that they're so... Evolution was just an amazing thing. They're just so similar. Our view of our hands is, I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. We remember Moses, what he did with his hands on the mountain when he came down and saw the evil. I took the 2 tablets and threw them out of my hands, breaking them in pieces. So there are hundreds and hundreds of verses on this subject. I could barely make a dent in it. Going back to Deuteronomy 4, back to the Israelites. This is Moses, I think, the pre-warning, giving them. After entering the land, the Israelites soon began worshiping idols, man-made gods of wood and stone, which cannot see or hear, eat or smell. And all these idols are made by the hand of man. How many times were the people delivered into the hands of the enemy? Delivered out of the hand of the enemy. In Job, we read about Eliphaz, and he replies, think how you have instructed many, how you have strengthened feeble hands. And that's what Job did before the calamity fell upon him. He strengthened people's feeble hands and made them stronger. It's a good example for us to follow. So we've given examples of God's hand this morning and of man's hand. What about the hand of the angels? We're all familiar about this account. Let's see. And in a few more moments, wherever the people in the back, some will be coming out. So our story begins in Genesis 13. So Abram went up from Egypt to the Negev with his wife and everything he had, and Lot went with him. Abraham had become very wealthy in livestock and in silver and in gold. Now Lot, who was moving about with Abram, also had flocks and herds and tents. This is like a pre-warning verse to me, because the next verse is, but the land could not support them while they stayed together. Their possessions were too great to stay together. So quarreling arose between Abram's herdsmen and Lot's herdsmen. So Abram says, let's not have any more quarreling between you and me or the herdsmen, for we are brothers. And Abram tells Lot, look, whatever way you want to go, whatever direction you go, I'll go the other direction. Take whatever part of the land you want. Note, Abram, I think, was probably sick of the fighting and sick of the quarreling, and doesn't seem like they went to God for advice. They handled this on their own. We're going to just split up. So Lot looks up, and he sees the whole plain of the Jordan like the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt. This was noted right after that, this beautiful land. We can envision this. Grassy, prairie, great for the herdsmen. This was before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. So, okay, we need Lot out here, if you guys can see me, I hope. Lot, hello. Maybe he's not dressed. Still getting dressed. All right. So Lot is now living among the cities of the plain, and he sets up his tents near Sodom. This is chapter 13, verse 13. Now the men of Sodom were wicked and sinning greatly against the Lord. The commentary in the Bible was Lot, and I found this interesting, since the men of Sodom were known to be wicked, Lot was flirting with temptation by choosing to live near that city. Lesson for us, how often do we flirt with temptation? We get too close to sin and evil. It's an example for us. Where do our hands set up our tents? Right near the gates of sin? And contrast this to the actions of Abram. So Abram moved his tents. Do we need to break down camp and move our tents? I believe we have a camping trip coming up, Sue, pretty soon. Is that still on? Labor Day camp out. Where will we set up our tents at the Labor Day camp out? Hopefully next to a brother or sister. Now, Lot, you're sitting by the gate now. Right at the gate of Sodom, that big one. Two angels The two angels arrived at Sodom in the evening, and Lot was sitting in the gateway of the city. Do we move ourselves into the gateway? Would we become a member of Sodom's ruling council, since the gateway served as the judicial center? The town finds out that these angels showed up here. They surround the house, and they kept putting pressure on Lot. But Lot doesn't give in to the pressure this time. He knows they're angels, and he's like, I better really listen to them, maybe. How many times do we give in to pressure? So speaking to Lot, they say, the people that are trying to get in because they want these angels, get out of our way. You came here as an alien, speaking about Lot, and you want to play judge, because he was at the gate judging. Probably, I'm guessing, because of his wealth. He was so wealthy, they probably let him in at that gate, that place of honor. So the angels pull Lot inside the house, away from these evil men.
Come on, Lisa. Let's go. Go.
You can come around this. This is dress rehearsal. So you're going into the house. Very good. They pulled Lot inside the house, shut the door, and they struck the men, young and old, outside that were at Lot's door with blindness. The angels tell Lot, you gotta get going.
All right.
They tell Lot, we're going to destroy this place.
This place is gonna be burning down with fire.
We'll destroy it.
We'll destroy it. We gotta get going.
They urge Lot, hurry. Go get your wife. Go in the audience. Go get your wife
Get your wife. Go, go.
Go get your wife
Go, go.
and your two daughters
and your two daughters.
Get them.
and anyone else. Go talk to your son-in-laws out there. You try to get anyone to go with you. They don't want to go. Lot is told by the angels, anyone who is with you, get them.
Get anyone.
Get them out of here.
If you care about them, get them, buddy.
Get your wife and two daughters, or you will be swept away.
It's gonna rain fire.
And this is an example for us also. Either or, right or wrong, the hand of an angel or the hand of man or the hand of God or the hand of man, the hand of sin or the hand of right. When he hesitated, now you guys go up there. You guys grab all their hands somehow.
It's not safe out here, guys. Let's get going.
When he hesitated, the angels grasped his hand and the hands of his two daughters and the wife's hand and led them safely out of the city. That way out of the city. The men grasped his hand, the hands of the daughters, and led them safely out of the city, for the Lord was merciful to them. Some of us here may have been in the presence. Yeah, don't go all the way out yet. Slow, slow. One more part. How many may have been in the presence of an angel? I believe myself, we all have been at one time or another. And when having been sent from the Lord, and they take us firmly by the hand or by our hands, we need to listen and follow and not hesitate. So the lesson here, when an angel takes you by the hand, follow. Get out of the city. Get out of that gate. So when God destroyed the cities of the plain, he remembered Abraham, and he brought, now his name is Abraham, had that transition, he brought Lot out of the catastrophe that overthrew the cities where Lot had lived. And as they were leaving, Lot's wife looked back and became a pillar of salt. So, we remember Jesus here today and every day. Luke 24 tells us, and I don't know how long you can stand right there and breathe, Christine, so whenever you need to leave, you can. Jesus, we're told, this is about Jesus. Why do you look for the living among the dead? He is not here, he has risen. Remember how he told you while he was still with you in Galilee, the Son of Man must be delivered into the hands of sinful men, be crucified, and on the third day be raised again. Then they remembered his words, and everyone who calls upon the name of the Lord will be saved. Men of Israel, listen to this. Jesus of Nazareth was a man accredited by God to you by miracles, wonders, and signs, which God did among you through him, as you yourselves know. This man was handed over to you by God's set purpose and foreknowledge, and you, with the help of the wicked men, put him to death by nailing him to the cross. And Jesus later showed those wounds where he was nailed through. And from what I've read, that's not the normal way where they nailed him. They tied them, just also tied them, but he was nailed to the cross. David said about him, I saw the Lord always before me because he's at my right hand. I will not be shaken. God has raised this Jesus to life, and we are all witnesses to the fact. Exalted to the right hand of God, he has received from the Father the promised Holy Spirit and has poured out what you now see and hear. Could somebody read for me 1 Thessalonians verses 11 and 12? Chapter 4. Someone with a good loud voice. Okay, Brother Russ.
Yeah. 1 Thessalonians 4, verses 11 and 12. To aspire to live quietly, to mind your own affairs, and to work with your hands as we charged you, so that you may command the respect of outsiders and be dependent on nobody.
Mind our own business, work with their hands, and gain respect. We're going to close with a song, and we're all going to sing it. Everybody got a part today. I hope a lot of you know it or have good memories. We're going to do it in rounds, and be the guys first, then the ladies, then everybody all together. It's the song I told Sister Ruth yesterday. It goes, put your hands in the hand of the man that stilled the water. Put your hands in the hand of the man that calmed the sea. I forgot. I've only been singing it for a week. Yeah, yeah. Then you can look at yourself as. Yeah. So, oh, I don't, my phone's back there all off. Let's see. I wish I would have had time to write it out. It's like, your hands in the hand of the man that stilled the water. Put your hand in the hand of the man that calmed the sea. Take a look at yourself and you can look at others differently by putting your hand in the hand of the man from Galilee. Ooh. Okay, can the guys do that? If I lead it, if I don't forget it? What it's? Yeah, we're not doing that far. We're not going that far. Be lucky to do this. Okay, the guys, then the ladies, then everybody together. 1, 2, and 3. Put your hand in the hand who stilled the water. Put your hand in the hand of the man who calmed the sea. Take a look at yourself and you can look at others differently by putting your hands in the hand of the man from Galilee. Ladies. Everybody, put your hand in the hand of the man that stilled the water. Put your hand in the hand of the man who calmed the sea. Take a look at yourself. You can look at others differently by putting your hands in the hand of the man from Galilee. Thank you. That was fun.